Hello and welcome to the IRS Rail webinar session on integrated rail data management, emerging trends for unpredictable times, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with Smart Motors. I'm Jules Omura, the Managing Director of IRIS Events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had over 300 people from 53 countries registered for today. Welcome to those of you attending our webinar program for the first time, and welcome back if you joined us before. We launched our webinar program this time last year. We couldn't run physical events, but the rail sector needed the latest information more than ever. So we launched the program without knowing if it would be successful, but knowing at least we'll be playing our part. And in the end, we ran 12 successful webinars between June and December last year. 1 year on, the initial panic is over, but the uncertainty is still continuing, and the very high level of interest in this webinar shows that the webinar format is still here to stay. Today's topic is a good example of how the pandemic has forced the rail sector to accelerate innovation. We have already 12 webinars confirmed for this year, and I'm grateful to our sponsors for allowing the railway community to meet in this way. If you're interested in supporting our content-driven webinar program, or participating in a debate, we are keen to hear from you, so do get in touch with us. I'm delighted to have the support of leading opinion makers and innovators as speakers with us today. And in particular, we are grateful for the support from Smart Motors, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. Smart Motors is an expert in real-time monitoring and data analysis. Many rail operators and maintainers rely on Smart Motors' latest research to improve day-to-day operations, from passenger occupancy monitoring and performance analysis to predictive maintenance and energy consumption analysis. So I look forward to learning about Smart Motors' solutions on integrating rail data management from their CEO, Mark Gisper. I'm equally grateful to Martin Mason from Network Rail, Wiboud van Ede from Rotterdam's transport operator RET, and Ignacio Oliver from Barcelona Metropolitan Transport, TMB, for sharing their expertise with us today. This is an interactive session, so you in the audience are invited to participate proactively in the discussion. You will see on your screen a chat section where you can chat with other audience members, and you can also ask questions to the speakers. So go to the Q&A section and type your questions, and your questions will be picked up by Paolo during the Q&A session, panel discussion section. There will be 2 polls today, so at the beginning and just before the panel discussion, we'll be showing poll questions for the audience members to respond to, so that will come up. And finally, there's there are handouts of today's presentations available in the handout section. So do join the debate, and there will be a short evaluation at the end of the webinar. So do tell us what you thought about the webinar at the end of the session. We are tweeting live during this webinar, so you can follow us at Rail Summit. And please use our hashtag IRS Rail Webinars. If you enjoy the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guide for today, Paolo Guglielminetti. If you've seen our webinars before or attended the online summit in February, the chances are you've seen Paolo before. Paolo is one of the best moderators we've worked with, and we keep inviting back to guide us through the thick fog of uncertainty with his luminous insight. Paolo has over 20 years of experience in transport planning, economics, and operation. His current projects involve rail digitalisation in the 2 key areas of enhancing rail network operation and improving customer experience. I'm delighted to welcome you back, Paolo, for today's debate on integrated rail data management, emerging trends from unpredictable times. Paolo, over to you.
Thanks, thanks, Jules. Thanks to all the speakers you already introduced. I will spend a few words on each one of them later on. And thanks to Smart Motors for hosting and for supporting today's organization of this interesting webinar organized by IRS. So you know the topic, integrated rail data management, emerging trends for unpredictable times. It's true that COVID has accelerated innovation with new problems, requiring also new solutions. The pandemic has an unpredictable nature, and that means for the rail sector, and I would say in general for the transport sector, the lack of possibility to rely on precedent experience to predict, for instance, passenger behavior, but also freight demands, employee shift patterns, maintenance requirements. Interdepartmental and real-time data management will be then crucial for any rail and transport operator to survive across this uncertainty. But unpredictability is not just a matter of the pandemic. The mobility market is facing increasing changes in customer behavior, constantly modifying the structure of the urban space, and other events modifying the needs, the time, the quality of the mobility, as well as external conditions that are varying a lot, like weather, just to give an example. So lack of predictability is becoming the most common situation, not an exceptional one. Therefore, we have to think ahead and create a flexible system, be prepared to manage fluctuating demand and supply conditions. In that respect, data management is essential. We have to observe the changes with the data and make the data about the changes available on all public transport stakeholders and within the companies across the different functions. This webinar aims at raising awareness of these challenges and the risks and opportunities related to them. Besides, we would like to present also success stories of organizations that have been able to manage, let's say, to go through successfully this big data explosion. How can a rail operator better gather, visualize, and integrate information, and also streamline communication and data sharing across the organization? So today we will have a large audience of operators, infrastructure owners, digitalization experts, and I'm sure also the debate, the panel will be quite interactive. We have also Smart Motors that will provide his view and experience about technology and strategies that can be used to obtain the maximum benefit from available data. So I would like again to thank the speaker, Smart Motors. And we can now switch to the first poll. How would you describe data integration between departments in your organization? Please answer one of the following possible replies: fully and successfully integrated, or just somewhat integrated, or data is shared but is not integrated or automated, or if you are not sure or you don't know, just put your check on the last point. We will give you some time to answer. And you can see the result coming from the poll on the poll section on the right-hand side. I do not see the, yes. So I think the result is more or less stable. So the data shared but not integrated or automated as the largest number of answers, 45%. Then somewhat integrated, 34%. I'm not sure, 19%. And fully and successfully integrated, just 2%. So we see that progress exists in some companies, but very few of them really experience full integration, is what we expected. And in most cases, the largest number of answers was the data are somehow shared, but without a real integration and automation of the process of data sharing. So I think we can now move to the first presentation that will be given by Martin Mason. Martin is the Director of Predictive Maintenance in Network Rail. He's an experienced manager with detailed knowledge and experience in asset management, decision support, database management, data quality, data governance, data assurance, and data analysis, all the topics we would like to discuss today. He's been going through large transformation change projects, working in management within the business and also with the central teams. And I think the experience of a very important infrastructure manager, Network Rail, that will also face an expanding role in the near future, given the transformation launched by the British government, would be very, very useful and interesting for the audience. Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Paolo. I'm here today to introduce you to Network Rail's intelligent infrastructure tool, Insight. So the Intelligent Infrastructure Program has been set up to get the most from advanced analytics and big data. And it's around a web-based product that we're producing to give to our frontline operatives. And it's around using advanced analytics to be able to predict and manage maintenance and faults with the intelligence that we can glean from the analytics. So in Network Rail, we're a very data-rich company, but we're very intelligence poor, and that is that we haven't converted all of that good data into intelligence that we can then use to predict deterioration and prevent delays to passengers, obviously. So Insight's a decision support tool. So it's not there to make decisions for engineers. It's there to give them the ability to take all of the data feeds that come into them from all different sources and then convert that to intelligence that they can then use their engineering knowledge to apply to make the right decisions against renewals and work and maintenance, against preventing speed restrictions, etc. And it's not the final product. This is the first time in Network Rail, really, that we've operated in an agile way. Normally we operate waterfall, which is we will define a load of requirements, build a product and release it. Whereas with Insight, what we're trying to do is work in an agile way, and that is to pass on our development in a proof of concept phase to customers who can then define exactly what's needed to meet the mission objective of the product. So we're going to focus a little bit on the track element of the product, which is our first release. And in the track world, we have lots of data, comes off measurement trains, but we use it in a reactive way. So a measurement train will run, produce data, and we use that data to then say, here's all the sites that we need to react and fix based on their current condition. And what that means is it means we're very quick to go and think things, which means the effectiveness of the intervention we may apply may not give you the best life extension to the problem. And that tends to lead to repeat service affecting failures. So that is failures that repeat over time and pass on delays to our customers. And the whole concept around the product is providing the ability to take those data points that we use reactively and convert them to produce degradation rates around other things to predict when problems or defects will occur. And therefore, if we can get to them with enough time before they're going to occur, we can apply the right treatment and therefore mitigate any delays to customers or potential safety implications. I mentioned our delivery approach is very much, I like to call it our arm around the shoulder, which is we will produce a proof of concept around the requirements customers believe they need from our intelligence, and we will then work with them in an agile way, producing incremental releases that are then validated by customers before they're rolled out on a national basis. And that means that we get buy-in from the customer and the products actually do what we need them to do rather than what we believe they do when we build from a waterfall requirements-based approach. And what is the first release? Well, the first release is based around track geometry. Track geometry is kind of a measure of how our trains run across the network, and we have safety limits set against those. And what we're trying to produce is a way to visualize that so operatives can view degradation. So at the moment, that's a challenge based on the volume of information we have and the way it's presented in PDFs or paper. What the product aims to do is bring a year's worth of intelligence from data collection together to produce predictions and alignment of data in order to firm up our workbanks and give our operatives enough time to react to problems before they become passenger or service affecting. So it's the first time in our industry in the UK we've managed to align so much intelligence together through space and time to be able to produce these degradation models, as well as provide an operative with an inbox which allows them to prioritise and manage faults as they are predicted to occur in a structured way, which is more efficient than doing it with their paper-based method at the moment. And what does it give? Well, it gives aligned traces, it gives predicted threshold exceedances, which is something we've not had before. It tries to give our engineers at least 365-day view ahead of where each 200 mil of track is deteriorating and what level it will reach. We've created a new visualise way of predicting and looking at faults for cyclic top, which is one of the service affecting failures that cause one of the biggest delay and service impacts to our customers at the moment. So we're really focusing in on the areas that will pass on those significant improvements to the customer base and the freight operators. And what does it mean for our end users? Well, I've talked about it before. It's the ability to prioritise their faults. It gives them confidence. So having intelligence and presenting it is a journey that breeds confidence with our end users. And then it will allow them to realise what the opportunity is to be able to plan earlier, more effectively, with safety in mind. So you're not putting our operatives on the track when you don't need to. It gives improved root cause analysis and P2Fs. And the key thing for us is fewer repeat faults. So we identify a problem, we fix it, and that gives us the biggest life extension around that defect. Improved access planning. So obviously access to the railway is limited based on the fact that trains run, and access needs to be achieved in the safest possible way. By giving people enough time to look ahead, they can then plan that access safely and secure it in order to do the right work. And the ability to group interventions. So being able to assess a train run full of information and predict means that you can work still in the reactive way, because that's what we have to do to keep the railway safe. But you can then take the work you're doing there and align it to the predictive elements, which means you get an optimised work bank. And what are we really about? So we've talked about track, but actually in my world, we're looking at all assets on the railway that potentially cause failures or are safety driven. And we look at that in terms of P2Fs, which is demonstrated here. So currently as a business, we put our intervention and immediate action limit on here. So this is a P2F of a geometry fault. And at the moment, we pick our faults up in a reactive way at intervention level. What the intelligence we're providing around is bringing people further back up this P2F curve so that we get to problems at alert level, and therefore we can gain that extra time to plan and create an optimum intervention to fix the problem. And this applies not only to track, but other assets that we have: point operating equipment, operate switches, level crossings. So all assets we have P2F curves, and our failure mode work that we do in the railway helps drive our intelligence understanding we need in MySpace to be able to produce the analytics around those P2F curves, and then pass that intelligence through the insight to our end users. So really quick recap. In summary, this is the kind of process flow that we've implemented. So a measurement train runs, we ingest the data now onto a cloud platform, which means we can transform and store and utilize a lot more data than we could previously. We then do some clever analytics, and then that's presented through our insight tool, where it's meant to be a very quick, efficient way through, i.e. customer into inbox, assess the intelligence through the features that we've developed, book your work and update your status. So the product itself has to be user-friendly and efficient enough for the operatives to get the benefit, and then obviously adopt nationally going forward. And finally, quick recap, what are the impacts of this product? So earlier planning, reduction in service connecting failures, which is passed on to passengers and freight, reducing our repeat faults, optimizing our work banks, and obviously improve safety. And also better understanding of how we can then group different types of asset faults together to optimize our renewal work banks. So that's it from me. Thank you for having me. Hopefully you all found that interesting, and I'm more than willing to take questions once we finish the other presentations.
Thanks a lot, Martin, also for perfect respect of the timing. Some questions are already coming. They will be shared with the speakers later in the panel session. Now we will move to the second presentation that will be given by Mark Gispert, which is co-founder and CEO of Smart Motors. Hi, Mark. Mark is quite involved in several projects about digitalization and predictive maintenance. Smart Motors has several achievements in this area, and personally, Mark has an extensive technological training background with specialization in robotics, photonics, and business administration. He's also an entrepreneur, and we share this experience also based on his direct work with several clients. Mark, you have the floor.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you. We will speak a little bit about how to develop comprehensive. What we talk is about an holistic way to drive a digitalization strategy. Okay, and for that, just a little bit of context about us. We are a 15 years old company, actually project 10 years old company that started working in Metro Barcelona. So basically we are a spin-off of Metro Barcelona and UPC. We work now in almost all the continents. So we're a small company, but we have multinational company travels. And to start with the point about the presentation, let me introduce you the context that we found in 2020. That's when the unexpected happened. And what had happened is that we had to face different issues. The first one was the labor risk prevention driven by the COVID-19. The second one were the government measures, sometimes very random. And the third one, which is the heaviest and the one that most of you noticed the most, it's the dropping revenues. The ticketing fall a lot. So the first one, the labor risk prevention measures that we had to deal with, working with our customers, was that they had to split the turns that were overlapped during the day. So they had to separate them. So it means that the turns were shorter. Then also we had to split the teams in the depots and the workshops. So it means that they could not have interaction between them. And finally, we had to keep social distance. At the beginning was 1, then was less than that, and also don't forget about the masks and the gloves. So that issues were things that our customers didn't expect to have and start to have in 2020. So we had to face it somehow using our holistic strategy in digitalization. The government measures, as you know, the sector usually count people in person per square meter, but they said, no, now we need to count them in percentage. And also we need to have all the trains running and also all the ventilation at full speed. So basically, a lot of new environment that we had to deal with. And finally, which is the most, the heaviest, the hardest of it is the dropping revenues. This is the graphs that we had before the COVID. So in black and green, the amount of people we were moving in one of our operators in one line, and it dropped drastically from around 2 million to 300,000. So it's really low between February and March, and that end up with thinking about, okay, so what are we doing? How are we facing this? What can we do to achieve the things that we need to achieve, and what can we do to get the data into work in order that we can be more adaptive. And we found out that in many of the operators that we were working with, there were a lot of data sources. Okay, so in one case we had more than 5,000 data sources, things, the devices that are sending information, like IoT devices, assets that are connected, or monitoring devices. More than 200 information systems and more than 2.3 terabytes per day flowing into the platform. Okay, so it had basically two issues. One, it's the complexity. The second one is lack of data governance, and the impact is that there's no monetization in the investments that are being done in terms of monitoring and digitalization and IoT, and finally, no impact for the user. Okay, so the need in the market was to integrate, simplify, and create value out of that data. Okay. Because and the objective, the final objective, is to gain adaptability, and whenever something happens like this, something unexpected or a new need comes, to give a response in a short time. Okay, and that's where Savannah takes place. Okay, Savannah, it's the platform that it's meant to be rational and scalable and 100% railway born. Okay, so basically what we do is that we merge everything, we ingest all the data coming from these information systems and the data sources, and then we use that data to put it into work. Okay, so basically we collect all that data and then we dump it in a data lake and use artificial intelligence to streamline the data and to fit the tools like the business intelligence, condition-based maintenance, etc. And then we provide the information through directly for the customers through APPs or through platform screens, or to the users for our condition monitoring, for managing the workforce, for operation, etc. The final objectives are to improve the operation, improve availability and reliability, and have a better user experience. Some examples of tools that we already have working with and are already available in Savannah are, a breakdown prediction, as I said, condition-based maintenance, automatic planner for maintenance, passenger guidance, or information systems like platform screens. They show you how many people there's in the next train, etc., etc. You will see some examples in the next slides. These are some examples of Savannah showing this is for example the driver's desk in real time, so they see in real time everything that the driver is doing, assessment of the drivers, so we see if they have overspeeding, underspeeding, whatever, all the parameters of the fleet with geolocation, where are these trains running, if the are running in a good condition or not, how many people we are carrying, some tools for availability and reliability, like as I said, the maintenance automatic planner, where it gathers information about the condition of those assets and the resources that the operator have, and merging that and put the constraints, operative constraints that we have, we can create automatic maintenance planners so that the maintainer, just when arrives at their time slot, they get just the tasks that they need to do in their doing. So basically this helped a lot. This helped a lot to remanage, to replan all the maintenance due to the new constraints because of the COVID. Some customer experience, which was really very trendy, because in a short term, 2020, we could show the customers how many people we were carrying in the trains, if we were fulfilling the constraints about how many people on percentage we could carry, etc., etc. But having the tool is not enough. Okay, the digital transition, it's about culture, and you need a team to accompany that, because at the first term we need to gain capillarity. It means that it's not something that can be driven into one department. It needs to be transversal, and in every department, everyone needs to know what is the data, where is that data coming from, how can I use it, how can I ask for new developments or to change the things that I see, or the tools that I need. Okay, so that it keeps on growing, it keeps on adapting into the organization, and it creates value after all. And really important, have specialized allies. Okay, in the house or outsourced. Okay, we always say it's better outsource because you have the benchmark of the market, and also it's more flexible in terms of the capacity of the people that it's working on that, and also it's cheaper at the end. And be agile. Okay, so be agile means design a clear workflow in the organization, assign roles into the different departments. So anyone that it's in these departments needs to know who is in charge of the digitalization strategy in my department, and have a visible leader. Okay, so this is what we did. So basically, we have the digital leader, who is the person in the customer, in the operator, that it's the one that prioritizes the things that needs to be done, things that needs to be changed, new functionalities, etc. And then the department leader. So it's that person that gathers or receives the requirements and the needs of the final users, and filters that, and streamline that. So we put a team working for them. So the product owner, that is a person that is on hand-to-hand with the digital leader, and then the squad. So this is the typical agile way to behave. So basically, we get from maybe a period of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks the new requirements. So we develop the new requirements, we make the rollouts, and then keep on going. That's the way that we do. Okay, so basically this is how it looks like. Okay, so basically there is a non-synchronized, so it's an asynchronous process that the product owner and the digital leader have between them, that keep on adding tasks to the backlog, and then there's a team that keeps on developing and sending it to the user. This is something that we always want to remark. Okay, digitalization, it's not an isolated project. We found some operators that we did projects for them, and the thing is that they didn't work, and then what happened, they worked, but what happened is that something unexpected happened, like the COVID, and then the things that they were doing, the things that they need, changed drastically. So we had to remake the whole project. Okay, so that's the thing that we always remark. Okay, this is not a project, it's a way to improve activities and to create value day by day. And these are some things that we really cool that we made during the COVID. So since we were working like this, we could change the way the maintenance was being planned. So they had this auto maintenance planning, that if we had less resources and the turns of the shift of working were shorter, then we could tune that directly into the platform, and automatically that was rescheduled, so that we ensure that the workforce that we had, and with the constraints that we had, improve the availability at the most. Okay, so with the power that you have, whether you put it to ensure that the availability of the whole network is higher. And also we could change the way we were using the data to inform the operators about how many people were we carrying, to track that, also to send that information to the final customers, send that information to the transport authorities, etc. So our goals, the first one is to have Savannah, and to let you know that Savannah, it's meant to be the all-in-one place platform. So any initiative, any data source, anything that it's sending information can be integrated in Savannah. Okay, and also be the digital ally on the day by day. So basically, for those of you that rely on the outsourcing of that strategic part of the digitalization, we are the team that can help you with, and finally improve the transport network, which is quite obvious. So that's all on my side. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I will try to answer all the questions.
Thanks, Mark. You also perfectly respectful of our timing. I think a lot of interesting insight of both initial presentation. We move now to the third one. The speaker is Wiboud Van Ede, who is head of operation support in Rotterdam Electric Tram, RET, in the Netherlands. He's quite focused in enhancing business processes, taking into account also what digitalization can bring to that. He, a part of his current role, is well experienced in crisis, stabilization, and recovery phase. He was involved on all this area during the COVID pandemic. So he will probably address some of the topics that are coming already, the numerous questions we have from the audience. Without also an MBA from the Business School of Netherlands, a Bachelor in Military Science and Operational Studies from the Royal Netherlands Defense Academy. Without you, the floor is yours now.
So Paolo, thank you for the introduction. I think today will be my pleasure to give some insight on the use of data analytics during an active crisis. So my presentation today will be a little bit about what did we actually experience during this COVID crisis? How did we use data analytics to support our operations during the crisis? And what kind of lessons did we learn looking back at our operations and our data analytics during this crisis? So before I start with more content, I would like to give a little insight on the company that I actually work for. I work for the Rotterdam Electric Tram. It's the public transportation company of the second largest city in the Netherlands, Rotterdam. We transport somewhere around 650,000 individual travelers before the COVID crisis started. And you see here also the figure on our busiest, I would say, transfer station, where we actually transfer 125,000 passengers a day. Our operations, especially on the asset side, consists of, well, you can see here, metros, trams, buses, and we actually do own a fast ferry as well. So first of all, public transportation and the COVID crisis. What makes the COVID crisis or pandemic so special in terms of crisis management? Well, I think the most special about this actual crisis is that the fact that all the parts in our operations were actually affected by this crisis. So you see here in this slide as well, not only the large and unpredictable drop in ridership, but also on the resource side, we saw a big decrease in asset availability, mainly, I would say, because of the contractor side of the asset maintenance. So a lot of maintenance actually is outsourced to external partners coming from different European countries. Well, once there were travel restrictions, those contractors were not able to actually perform the maintenance that needed. So our asset availability decreased. But also, if we look to our own workforce, we saw an incredible increase in absenteeism. Somewhere, as you can see in this graph, there were points in time that we have like 20%, 25% absenteeism. So this combination of factors made this COVID crisis, I think, special. So if we look to the actual crisis, I think you can see and you can actually identify 4 different phases in crisis management. So I would say there's a preparation phase. If we relate that to the COVID crisis, so what did the company do dating a few years back till the moment that the crisis started to be able to better perform during a general crisis? The crisis phase itself, starting here in the Netherlands in March 2020, when the first national lockdown was there, that ended somewhere in June 2020. And then I think the phase that we're in right now, if we look at the COVID crisis, the stabilization phase, where we see actually a relaxation of COVID measures, but we're still not back on the same track as we used to be before the crisis. And that will be the recovery phase still to come. So as a company, how did we use data analytics and what kind of improvements did we actually do on our operations side during these different phases in the crisis? You see in these preparation phase, we actually focused on shortening lead times of the planning process. And I think that's one of the things that actually helped us out a lot during the crisis phase. We spent a lot of time and effort in the years leading up to the COVID crisis on making the planning process more adaptive, and that's one of the, I think, the main features that we used during the crisis phase. In the actual crisis phase, during the first national lockdown, I think we used data analytics mainly focused on compliance with COVID measures. So as stated before by Mark, there were a lot of different measures by local and regional governments. Sometimes it almost feels random what kind of measures would come in or go. And in this crisis phase, we used data a lot to actually show governments or show our customers that we were compliant with these different measures. If I look at the phase we're right now, stabilization phase, we use mainly the data analytics focused on customer support and employee support. And I'll show you a few examples of those data analytics in the next slides. And then there will be hopefully the recovery phase. We expect it to start in the fourth quarter of this year, well, where we will be using data analytics, hopefully again, to be more predictive and prescriptive, and actually be able to predict ridership and fleet availability again. So a few examples of these data analytics that we used. So this is an actual example of the table that we used, a very basic table, I would say, during the crisis phase. We were focused on vehicle occupancy. And in this table, you can actually see that we tracked every trip, every single trip made by every bus, every tram, every metro. And we tried to track them all and see whether there were occupancies that were out of range. So that's one of the things that we never used to do before the COVID crisis on such a detailed level. And this crisis actually made us do these kind of analysis as well. Another example here is the of the recovery phase. So the phase where we're in right now, we're very focused on providing customers, but also employees with the right insights that they need to actually do their work or actually plan their trip. So the example you see here right now is the trip planner on our company website. And we added a little, I would say, indication up there with these 3 little buttons. And it's an indication of how crowded your trip might be if you're using the trip that the planner actually gives to you. So if I would take this trip from 11:38 in the morning, the crowd indication would be low. So this, as a customer, this will hopefully give me a little bit more confidence that this trip will maybe not be overcrowded if I actually take it. So next to these examples, maybe a few lessons that we've learned on data analytics during this COVID crisis. First of all, I think, as stated before, that if you want to be prepared for a crisis in general, you need to increase the adaptivity of your operation. So that means not only shortening the lead times, but also making sure that your operations is actually data-driven and making sure that your data architecture that you're actually using for your data analytics is agile enough to be able to provide new indicators during this crisis phase. I would say for the crisis phase as well, one of the things that we've learned is that I think if you do data analytics, the things you do want to do is you want to be predictive. But during this crisis phase, there's not enough reference to actually do good predictions. So what we have learned is that we can also rely on more bandwidth predictions, so give it a little bit more a range and use scenarios during a crisis. So you can use high, medium, low scenario planning, for instance, as an example, to still be able to operate during this crisis. During stabilization, as shown in the examples as well, use the data that you actually have. So use it to the maximum capacity and try to share it with your most valued, or I would say all your stakeholders as well, to be able to support them to still operate or travel within your system as well. And then last but not least, only return to predictive and hopefully prescriptive analytics again during this recovery phase, but also use a realistic time frame in when you present this to others. So I would say, as presented in the previous slides, our prediction is that we will go back to predictive analytics in the fourth quarter of this year. So these were the lessons learned, I think, on our side on the data analytics and within the active crisis management. Let me end this discussion or this presentation, I'm sorry, with a little quote from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest, not the most intelligent, but the most adaptable to change that actually survives. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Wieboud. I think this applies well to transport means. So now we move to our panel discussion. I would like first to introduce Ignacio Oliver, who will also join the discussion, who is Director of Metro Project in Barcelona Metropolitan Transport, TMB. He joined the company in 1988, has been responsible of several departments of maintenance and project, and now is Director of the projects area of Metro, in charge of planning, management, and execution of projects related to infrastructure, trucks, energy, signal installation, and rolling stock in the Metro network. And again, we will have other speakers that have presented before, Martin, Mark, and Wieboud, that will also be part of the panel. In order to kick off the discussion, I would like to launch the second poll. The second poll, given the post-COVID uncertainty, which of the following areas will benefit most from integrated data collection and sharing? Understanding and forecasting passenger behavior and flow, understanding and forecasting freight demand, updating asset maintenance plans, or dynamic replanning of ships for operation. Of course, all are relevant. We would like to ask you which one will benefit in the larger extent from integrated data collection and management and sharing. The answers are still coming, so just wait a few additional seconds. I see two areas are getting the largest number of questions, of answers, sorry. So I think we can close the poll now. So the largest number of answers is about understanding and forecasting passenger behavior and flows, which gets 43%. And then updating asset maintenance plan, 30%. Dynamic replanning of ships for operation, ships for human resources and rolling stock for operation, 20%. And then understanding and forecasting freight demand, 7%. So I will start the discussion from this poll result. And I would like to ask to the speakers where you are in line with these answers, is what you expect, or you have a different view. I will start with Martin, and then I will pass to the other ones.
From my perspective, there's two key critical ones from my area. One is passengers and freight, so understanding their behaviours going forward, which will obviously dictate the future timetable. And then it's understanding those asset management plans from that. So being able to understand what the reduction, increase in freight, passenger, etc. is, and then being able to model that going forward around capital work banks renewals, and then your kind of maintenance work bank.
Thanks. Mark, what do you think?
Can you repeat the question, because I wasn't listening to that when you. So I didn't
Which one? We asked to the audience which area they think will benefit more from integrated data collection and sharing.
About the poll. Okay.
And the highest number was for understanding and forecasting passenger flows, and the second is updating asset maintenance plans, and so on and so forth. And I would like to ask you whether you are in line with those answers from your perspective.
Well, I think both of them were the hot topics in 2020. But from our perspective, the one that had more, by our experience, the one that had more requests by our customers was to reschedule maintenance planning. So use the new constraints in order to fulfill the preventive that should be done, and also to overcome when there's a corrective that needs to be done.
Interesting. Wiboud, what from your side?
Well, I think I would say that the actual prediction of demand, so in this case freight demand or passenger behavior, passenger demand, would have to come first. And so you will, with this prediction, you will be able to plan your services, and I think your service planning will trickle down into updated asset maintenance plans and also replanning of shifts and operations. So I think it starts with actual demand and service planning, and trickles down to workforce planning and asset planning.
Thanks, Wiboud. Ignacio, from your experience, what do you think?
Well, I think there is not only a binary question and only a good answer, no? Because both answers, the occupancy, the planning of the schedules, both were very important, no? In one point, there was a big worries about occupancy. There was on the media when we have trains that was full of people, and the people was this could be scaring the people to use the metro. So this was a big point. Knowing the passengers' behavior and inform about the occupancy of the trains was mandatory. But on the other hand, we have a lot of difficulties with the workforce, because we had people who was ill, or a lot of people who was in temporary confinements. So it was very important to perform the maintenance and the operation stuff. So both of the answers are the same importance from my point of view.
Thanks, Ignacio. And I remain with you to ask whether during the COVID, which is also something that came from the audience, or just after, have you used more extensively the data to understand the changes? And have you done just in real time, or also afterwards to have like a backcasting view, to review what happened and see whether the events and the way you managed them were appropriate? Ignacio.
Yes, of course. When you have a problem, and at this moment this was a problem because you don't have another work task, then you use all the tools that you have available. And we had some tools that they were introducing in predictive maintenance, and also CBM and replanning of the work orders, and that was intensively used. It was like COVID was like a boost to help to some changes that we were working to speed them, no? Because this was a real necessity, not was just trying to plan, trying to improve. No, it was really necessary to improve. So from that point of view, COVID boosted some changes that we were planning.
Okay, thanks. I think the other speaker have already provided their insight on that. I come from now to the question that got the highest number of votes or preferences across the audience, and is for Martin. Martin, several, I don't see Martin anymore. So I shift to another one, and then I will come back to Martin. There is a very popular question as well about the skill set needed to use, to manage, to understand the data. So I will start with Wiboud now. What do you think, according also to your specific experience in RET, what is needed to make an effective use of data in terms of staff reskilling or upskilling?
Yeah, so I think it sounds like a simple question, but maybe a long or a little bit of a long answer. I would say it requires first that your company, in their culture, but also the management, so middle management, upper management, there needs to be a sense of urgency around this subject. So you need a data savvy management. That I think that's first of all very important. If you look more into the actual providing of data and insights, that side of the question, I would say you need to have a discussion internally on how do you put all these functionalities and all these different positions, how do you actually put them within your company? Do you put them in the business side, or do you put them on the IT or digital side of your company? So I think that's a very important discussion as well.
Mark, according to your experience, there is a best solution for that?
Well, it might depend a lot in specifically what we are talking about, but I think that the skill sets, as we all said, the main issue, it's a cultural issue. So you need someone to drive that culture within the organization and have an upfront commitment. So basically an up to down strategy and someone to drive that through all the departments, so to gain that capillarity and to have the commitment of all the users and be reliable, basically be reliable. So it's more soft skills what you might need, because on the technical side there's a lot of there's a lot of people that have the capability, the technical capability, from data analysts to people that knows a lot about the business in railway. But the real fact is that the highest percentage of failure in digitalization projects or strategies, it's related to the lack of commitment and culture.
Martin and then Ignacio, have you seen changes in that respect, change of cultural and mindset, of attitude in data utilization and management during the COVID? Martin first.
I agree with what Mark said. It's a kind of a business change element. Change is never easy, and it has to be driven top down, bottom up. So yeah, just to add to what Marco said.
Ignacio.
Yes, well, in my opinion, I agree. Culture is the most important. It's not easy, and sometimes there's people with fears, and there's positions or new ways of doing the things. People are worried about the job or about the consequences, the changes. But the good point of COVID is that it was more easy to understand that the changes were necessary, because it was like an emergency situation, So it was not time to think so much. You have to act, and if you have the clear what to do, there was more acceptance because it was like an emergency situation.
Thanks, Ignacio. Martin, there are a couple of questions that are quite specific to Network Rail in UK. One is more general and one is very specific. I will ask the two together. The first one is who is the owner of rail infrastructure data? And this maybe we will ask also to other colleagues. But the other one, which is more related to the infrastructure manager of UK, as you are, will the expanded role of Network Rail trigger a better use of data? And I would say implicitly the question is a larger sharing of data across the industry.
Yeah, I think the program we're on at the moment in terms of intelligent infrastructure is about embracing non-network rail data sets. So supply fitted equipment on passenger trains is a good example. I think the way the industry is going, sharing data is really important. The intelligence we build from our own data is potentially only half the answer. Yeah, so there are other data sets and intelligence that we could share around, vehicle dynamics, etc., that also bring extra intelligence into our world. So hopefully that answers that question. But yeah, I mean, sharing of data and intelligence, and it's more of the intelligence to me. It's not so much sharing of data, but the intelligence that we can glean from it. that's the key bit to drive forward. So one of the key messages around what we're trying to push with this improved analytics is obviously continuous improvement of products and analytics and your failure mode intelligence, and obviously other data sets that we don't have internally that can add to that or bring extra benefit is what we consider using going forward.
Thanks, Martin. Mark, have you seen in the projects you carried out this emerging trend to share data and intelligence, not just within the company, but also with the external stakeholders, including passenger, but not only?
Yes. One of the things that we did at the beginning of the COVID was to share the information not only inside of the metro, but also on the outside for the applications for the land transport authorities, and also we started sharing information with other third parties like the train manufacturers for condition monitoring of their assets, etc. So that's something really trendy, and I think that it's increasing a lot. It's increasing a lot because there's a lot of consumption of the data outside of the companies.
Thanks, Mark. There was a specific question on this area when you presented about the way you share the data with the users, with the passenger. How do you flow the information to them?
Yeah, so I think the sharing with information with our customers was the easiest part. I would say we have different customer interfaces. So we have a website, we do have apps and different the kind of interfaces as well. So I think sharing information with our passengers was kind of natural to us, being customer focused as well. But I think the sharing of information with external stakeholders was much more difficult because there was almost no standard, no technical standard for sharing. So I think sometimes it came down to sending Excel spreadsheets through Outlook Mail and that kind of sharing. But I think we actually gained a lot by it as well. So I think we gained a more network kind of environment within our own business environment where we can benefit from in the future.
Thanks, Ignacio. On data sharing with external stakeholders and including passenger, what is your view on that in the experience?
Well, my experience that this is a very important issue that it must be taken in account from the beginning of a project, because we all know that that data is the goal of the 21st century. Data it can have a lot of power because now knowing the behavior of the customers, of the assets, of everything. So we always try to define. You ask about who is the ownership. Well, when we begin a project, we try to define the purpose and limitations is the use of the data, because we think this is an important question, and also because at the moment in the railways industry, every time there's more a very smooth line between the operators, industry, trains, everything, So, we must be aware of all those essential data of our operation, Because someone with a bigger or best capability to analyze big data could be our new we can increase dependency, on the railways industry. So we are very interested in keep the knowledge of everything, define very well the purpose of all the data that we share, that obviously it must be shared to improve and be an active factor.
Thanks a lot. We have then several questions that are a bit more technical. I will not share all of them, but some can have a general interest. So one let's say that was generated by, I would say, stimulated by Martin's presentation, but is applicable also to the cases presented by other speakers, is how do you actually optimize maintenance once you know in detail the failure rates of the different equipment? So how it works more practically?
It's a case of saying the way our users are set up is they each have a section of track they're responsible for, as an example, and they'll have frequent measurement runs across it. So the way the product's built is to be able to assess your whole section at once. So you would have a risk profile within there as an example, which is around impact to passengers' safety, time till service impact, all that kind of stuff. And it's about then understanding what you do know now, the reactive element versus the predictive element, and then obviously knowing the access rights you'd have on that patch, the resources that you have, which we manage in our maintenance system, and you bring those two worlds together to say, based on the things you know you've got in a work bank or are going in, and the things that you know, the predictive elements of those, is then optimizing that access, resource plus cost kind of framework. So although at the moment it's very much a kind of we've given you some intelligence, yeah, and now you understand your patch and your work bank. It's now bringing those two worlds together with the resource and the capability pool to then apply it to your own section. But obviously the biggest challenge then is when you look in a national view of the rail network, how do you then allocate an optimized work bank across the whole of the UK, where each element of the railway is in a lesser or better condition than another area?
Ignacio, you mentioned this topic also before. Have you been able practically to connect better knowledge, infrastructure failure rate with, let's say, predictive or condition maintenance programs?
Yes, well, in fact, we are using Savannah, the system that Mark explained, no? And we have very defined functions for all different kind of assets. It's the same point machine, the track circuit that some parts of the trains or even tracks or bridges, because we used to a part of to be used in condition-based maintenance, that it begins with selecting how to define the quality level of each individual asset. So from inputs that we have of sensors, of information given from other existing systems, we provide like a parameter to show which is the quality of this asset, and we can order the different assets depending on the health, no, in every moment. So once that health is defined, what we do is to check which is the variation of the health parameter on the time, no, and how it improves when we make an inspection or some activity maintenance, no. So we are continuously ordering this health monitoring of every asset, and then we have some fixed inspection that must be done for safety reasons. For example, every 6 months, some assets is mandatory to have an inspection, no? So we try to fit the health status with the longest as possible, because other reasons, no, in order to minimize the need of inspections, and try to do it when they are really necessary, no. This is one point of view, conducive batch and maintenance, and the other is predictive. And the system also tries to define alarms, and it can be by thresholds, it can be by measurement of tendencies, or several different parameters. And when this trigger is activated, and like a document is created with all the information at that moment, and comparing with a library of patterns of failures. So it can provide you immediately with what the similarity with other failures, trying to tell you what it is the importance, if it's urgent or it's not so critical, what is the most probably reason, and this is providing in real time to the operators of the system, no? So this and the system is able to be learning after new failures are produced. No, so after time, and this is very important, the implication of the maintainers, because they must report what really happens after a failure. Then the system is construction are really helping machine. No, it's like a colleague that tells you things that could happen before it happens, and also shows you which is the most probably situation or breakdown. No.
Thanks, Ignacio. So this covers a bit also some other question about Savannah. Mark,
sorry,
Ignacio was able to explain very well how it works. So we managed to cover. I will pass now to again a technical topic. There are several questions about the source of data, in particular from track. So whether you are using diagnostic trains or you have sensor on tracks. So this, I think, a question applicable to all of you, and also how these different data are flowing to the platform, and this can be relevant for Mark as well. So I will ask first Martin on that.
Yeah, so we have multiple inputs for track data. Obviously, we have manual measurement, which is operatives going out and doing it manually. We have our measurement trains that operate around geometry. We have pattern recognition around defects and clip types. We have various other wheel set monitoring. We do have information that comes off supplier trains. And we have, when we talk about track, we have kit fitted on S&C units around point operating equipment. And then we have rail management, which is lasers, measurement with lasers, looking for cracks, various other elements. And then for ballast, we use GPR, ground penetrating radar, which produces a ballast foul index. So those are the kind of inputs that we have around track. We've started to utilize weather. So recently we've got much lower granular weather information. It goes back to what we were talking about, backcasting, understanding rates of change in P2Fs historically against weather patterns. So that then will help with our machine learning around our predictive point operating equipment predictions, where we're starting to utilize the track element against other models to bring a wider kind of system level intelligence.
Okay, thanks a lot. Very comprehensive. Wiboud, do you measure, do you analyze, and do you take data about track? I know that the tramways is always complex infrastructure because it's interacting with the road platform a lot. How do you manage this?
Yeah, so first of all, maintenance and predictive maintenance is not my field of expertise, but I can give a little bit of insight as far as my knowledge goes. I know we use kind of similar tools that Martin was mentioning. So we do have special trams and metros that do a lot of measurements, especially during the nights. We do, I would say, manual measurements as well. And we have some, also some sensor-based or sensors based within the network as well. So I think that would be the three main sources of data.
Ignacio, DMB.
Well, we have the traditional measurements doing from board trains, but we are working now in trying to install equipment in operation trains to get some information, because two special things. No, one is we have continuously measurements every day, no, and second, in the real conditions of measurements with the weight of the train, the speed of the trains, and those things. And we are working in three areas. One is about measuring accelerations and vibrations to have all the profile of the line, of every line, and check the changes that we have after a maintenance work or the degradation day to day. Other is with geometrical auscultation, and the third is trying to measure the temperature of rails. Also combine it from train, but also combine it with some fixed equipment, because of course the change of temperature is very important. And at night we don't have trains running, no. So so we have some fixed also temperature sensors, no, on tracks.
Thank you, Mark. We see that the source of data are, let's say, heterogeneous. There are a number of inputs coming with different frequency, different elements involved. How this can be technically managed in terms of creating an overall intelligence about the status of the asset?
Well, actually, it doesn't matter the what the data provides and the how the data is. What we do is that we have a process to harmonize all the data, to streamline the data, to fill the gaps, to delete the aberrances on the data, and then it's dumped in the data lake. So it really doesn't matter where it comes from and the form of it. Imagine that if for example, Ignacio wants to buy a sensor from a startup that it has something, a very cutting edge solution for the rail maintenance or for the rail monitoring, we could just through an API or directly to our VPN direct to the cloud and dump it into the system.
Okay. And so someone in the audience mentioned also the need to let's say connect this asset database with the safety management system of the company. So that's is something that is quite. There's a lot of experience in airports and then in railways now. These are personal experiences. Sometimes managers are a bit reluctant because normally the SMS is accessible also to the safety authority, and so they can see that maybe something is not considered an alarm or an intervention trigger, while for infrastructure manager, given his experience, knows why, let's say, is considered in a different way. But I think is a good point to be mentioned. Martin, what is your view on that?
So everything I do or we do in our product is driven by a standard. So thresholds, reaction times, everything else. I think as a business, you have to learn from the intelligence that you get around, and it's not simple to say this is going to take this length of time. It's about understanding all the failure modes and root causes, and then you can use the intelligence you build over time to then, I don't want to say challenge, but review those safety level standards with intelligence. But from my perspective, what we do, that's always the first thing that you would use to then implement in the product. And then it's a case of saying you can have risk-based maintenance regimes around those things with the intelligence you've got, but it's how much can you validate the things that you're producing on false positives, and therefore you've always got that safety standard level to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Ignacio, any request from the safety authority in charge for oversighting your lines to get access of such information?
Well, we have to in the safety area, there are like two big points of view, or activities. One is to be sure that everything is okay, and the process of validation of every new installation on every new function. This is one of point of view, and in that case, when some introductions of new sensor could affect that, there is like a check that it is not affecting the safety of the original system. And the second, and is very interesting and very important, is emerging now, is that by monitoring, especially trains at the moment, the other function of the safety department in our company is has more information about some safety issues that can happen, because now they have introduced some algorithm to detect when a train is being manually driving, when it's an area that should be in ATO mode, and then they can ask why, So they are every day they are like a report of every possible violations of standards that has been performed, and then they can do their activity more efficiently, no? So this is something new that is emerging, and now we are working as a new functions about this point of view, no? How a monitoring system can help to the monitoring of safety, no? Because you need to monitor that there is no violation of rules, no?
Okay, I will ask Martin a quick answer on the following question, and then I will move to do two more general one before closing. So there is a Gavin Brown asking if your resources are already fully committed to addressing measurements that require immediate intervention. How can you move up the PF cure to deal with predictions? So all your staff is doing condition maintenance, I would say, how they can be involved in predictive.
Yeah, so it's difficult, and we call it a bow wave, right? So what you're saying is certain areas of the country are in different condition areas based on when they last had a renewal or usage or whatever. So what you're saying is if you're in a very reactive world at the moment and all your resources are allocated in that reactive space, what you're trying to do is say, where I'm going to do the reactive work, what other elements do I have in that space that I can do at the same time? Yeah, so I may be going out to do an immediate level twist fault, but actually I've got two alert level top faults that are growing 10 yards down. So you're trying to get the most out of the time you're spending on your reactive work bank by trying to pick up those things in the same work order. And then it's a process of saying, as you start, you should start to see a reduction, however slight, in the reactive element. And then it's optimizing that going forward. But it certainly isn't, you know, you get your product and you're into the predictive world of not being reactive. It's a journey that's going to take time.
Absolutely. So the last point, I would say, there was an interesting question about the data model, but I think we have not the time to provide answer in detail. But I would put this in a larger framework, which is also a question putting together with another question. Is are you thinking, especially for the commercial data, I would say, but to some extent also about operation data, about reliability, punctuality of the service, are you discussing to share data outside the railway industry with other transport modes? For instance, it is mentioned in the chat with airlines and airports, but this is applicable also for urban transport to other transport service providers that are relevant for urban areas. So are you starting to looking outside, let's say, the box of your industry and sharing information that can be relevant for other transport operator? And if yes, of course, any obstacle or feedback in particular relating to how to share data with other stakeholders. Without first.
Yeah, so I think sharing of more customer-focused data will be, I think, one of the things that will increase the coming years. So as we have seen, for instance, the occupancy, if we can share that data with, I don't know, an airfield, I think it will provide potential customers or actual customers with insights that they can use to plan their trip. So I think as long as it's customer-focused, it will be okay. And it will be kind of, I would say, natural to share that data with external stakeholders as well.
Thank you. Ignacio?
Well, if we are talking about data of information of the public transport, like the timing of timing of the trains, or if there is some interaction or some delay, we have an open real-time data in our web, no? And we provide an API service that can be used to have this information and to mix in with other operators or with other services that can be used. No, this is about the services that we provide. This is about the data of assets management. I think that at the moment is not planned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. We are reaching the end. I hope that I was able to share most of the question, I would say 95% of the question from the audience with you and get your answer. Very quick conclusion from my side. Thanking again the International Rail Summit as Smart Motors for organizing this interesting discussion. I think we have seen the topic from different aspects. A key element emerging from the pandemic and what we have just experienced is that on one side, we have improved the use of the data we already collected, moving from a reaction to a optimization and predictive mode, as Martin was saying. And this was shared by most of the experience you provided, but we started to gather also new data. We about mentioned about and share new data. We about mentioned the train occupancy, tram occupancy level, which has been quite a popular topic, which is relevant for pandemic, but no one would like to travel squeezed in a tramway or in a metro, no? So this remains relevant also after the pandemic. How to manage well this increased set of capabilities and available data? On one side, we have to improve organizationally, more in terms of soft skills and technical skills that are generally available, and have a common culture for data digitalization across the company. On the other hand, it's very important the cross-industry and data sharing with other stakeholders, and not just data, but intelligence. It was mentioned by Ignacio. I think is important not just to share the information about the elaboration and the insight coming from it. And this requires standards, require proper model, require understanding of the roles of the data ownership and quality. So it's not an easy task, but it's crucial for the overall improvement of the railway and public transport mobility experience. Thanks again to everybody. It's all on my side, and I will now again pass to Jules for the conclusion.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you to all the speakers. It was a very good, insightful debate, and three excellent presentations at the beginning as well. And it felt like we learned a lot over the last 90 minutes, and we talked about data sharing, but this is sharing of best practice across the rail community, and I think you guys, some of the most represent some of the most advanced operators, rail operators, infrastructure owners, and urban transport operators. And I hope the audience members will have learned something new today, and I hope you can improve your operations moving forward. From out of today's discussion. So once again, thank you very much to all the speakers, Martin Mason, Mark Chispert, Wilbert Van Ede, Ignacio Oliver, and Paolo Guglielminetti. Thanks to Smart Motors for supporting today's webinar as well. I'd just like to mention the next webinar, which is towards the end of this month. So we had a webinar regarding FIMCS, the 5G-based connectivity solutions that's coming up very soon, 2025 onwards. So we had the session part 1 a couple of weeks ago, and this is the second of the two-part series on how can the rail infra sector implement FIMCS with maximum efficiency. So this is taking place on the 30th of June. The second part will be on how can we ensure efficient FIMCS connectivity in rural areas. So we talked about, in part 1, we talked about transition from GSMR to FIMCS. And the second part will talk about what happens once we have FIMCS in place. How can we ensure that there's no data disconnection in rural areas. So we have speakers from UIC, Frequentis, FTIA from Finland, SNCF Réseau, and ADIF, and moderated by Robert Sarfati from Sistra. So do join us for the next webinar on the 30th of June. For now, once again, thank you very much to all the speakers and to Smart Motors And I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you for joining us on IS Rail webinars, and goodbye.